Hello and welcome to Stories of Science. Here, we look back on humanity's long journey to understand the world. The questions, the failures, and the breakthroughs that slowly changed how we see the universe and ourselves. We tell science as stories. Joseph Henry, the forgotten genius who powered the modern world. Did you know that electricity and the telegraph weren't always widespread? They were once mysterious, unexplored realms, until an unsung scientist uncovered their secrets. You've probably heard of the telegraph, generators, and electric motors. But have you ever thought of Joseph Henry? Henry's name is almost always overlooked. When people talk about electricity, names like Morse, Edison, and Tesla pop up instantly. But Henry, silent as ever. This quiet scientist changed the world. Without him, electricity and communication might not have even taken shape. Want to know why? Henry's research is everywhere in our lives now. Electric motors, generators, the telegraph, even the light bulbs in your home. It's all connected to him. But he didn't get the recognition he deserved. His inventions are everywhere today, yet other names often steal the spotlight. In today's tech world, almost every corner hides a trace of Henry. He didn't create the light bulb miracle like Edison, nor did he broadcast the world's messages like Morse. But he was ahead of them. Ahead to the point where almost everyone ignored him. Think about it, how much of what we use today, phones, computers, electric tools, has Henry's contributions behind it? Even the fridge has his shadow. You're probably thinking, why was such a brilliant scientist so low-key? His name doesn't come up often when we discuss the history of technology. But don't worry. Today, we're stepping into his world. We'll explore how he used simple wires and magnetic fields to change the face of the world. Alright, let's start from the beginning. In the 1800s, Joseph Henry was born in Albany, New York. You might have heard of it, or maybe not. Albany wasn't exactly a major city. Henry's family wasn't wealthy. His father was a merchant, but business wasn't great. They struggled financially, and Henry's early life was pretty ordinary. But did you know, Henry didn't intend to follow in his father's footsteps? Don't get me wrong, he wasn't looking down on the family business. It's just that he had a different interest: electricity and magnetism. Yes, you heard that right, electricity and magnetism. While other kids were focused on taking over family businesses, Henry was at home experimenting with electromagnetic phenomena. Can you imagine? A kid doing electricity and magnetism experiments in his house. That's no ordinary playtime. His mother was an unusual woman. She saw his passion and didn't force him into the family business. Instead, she encouraged him, saying, "Go experiment." Her support was ahead of its time. Back then, most parents hoped their kids would take a more secure path. But Henry's mom saw his potential and supported him in following his own dreams. Henry's early life wasn't easy. His family had little money, and educational resources were scarce. But from a young age, he was fascinated by science, especially electricity and magnetism. He didn't go to school to learn, he took matters into his own hands and started experimenting. This young scientist embarked on his journey of discovery. With no fancy equipment, he built his own experimental tools. This genius and poverty mentality paved the way for his future. Henry didn't rely on family funds for his experiments. Instead, he used simple materials to explore the mysteries of nature. If you've ever done experiments at home, you can feel the same drive Henry had. Even though his family had limited resources, his mother always supported him. She gave him the chance to follow his dreams and do what he loved most. By now, you're probably wondering, how did he do it? Well, that's Henry's strength. He taught himself how to experiment and observe electromagnetic phenomena. Despite lacking formal education, Henry's curiosity led him to deep dive into electromagnetism. Don't underestimate that, it laid the foundation for all his later achievements. Born in 1797, Henry was raised at a time when technology wasn't as widespread as it is today. Imagine a young boy seeing the future of tech in a world that didn't even have what we now consider basic. His father, though a humble merchant, was a supporter. Henry didn't follow his father's path but instead turned toward the world of science. This thinking outside the box attitude would define his future. Look at that. He didn't follow the prescribed route, instead, he carved his own path. Electricity and magnetism became the keys he used to change the world. Henry went from an ordinary family to becoming a great scientist. What a contrast! A small, unassuming town gave birth to a man who would shake the world. His success wasn't just about talent, it was also about family support, especially his mother's vision, which gave Henry the courage to pursue his dreams. In other people's eyes, Henry wasn't normal from the start. He was more interested in electricity and magnetism than in serious business. But it was this unusual nature that made him create history. You see, while Henry's family background seemed ordinary, it was full of possibilities. A regular boy, supported by his mother, set off on a scientific journey that would change the world. Now, does this science genius from Albany seem a little more special than you imagined? Henry is a bit like an underdog version of us ordinary students. You know, Princeton University, today's renowned institution, didn't exactly roll out the red carpet for him at first. The academic path wasn't easy for Henry, especially in those days. In 1826, Henry entered Princeton. You might think, was Princeton a big deal from the start? Actually, when Henry arrived, the school wasn't the shining star it is today. When Henry enrolled, Princeton wasn't exactly buzzing with the scholarly atmosphere it has now. His arrival didn't make any waves. At first, Henry was just an ordinary student. His grades were decent, but he didn't have any special family connections. Without those family resources that famous school alumni often have, his name didn't stand out on campus. When he first entered the university, Henry was just like any of us in a new school, unnoticed and unremarkable. Even in class, he didn't have any special glow. Even so, Henry quickly found his true passion: electricity and magnetism. Yes, electricity and magnetism. At the time, these concepts were not widely understood. They were more like laboratory monsters. No one knew what they could actually do. You can imagine, Henry walked into Princeton facing a pile of complicated scientific questions, with no one to give him a clear direction. Some scholars even thought that electricity and magnetism had no real connection. But Henry didn't back down. Like a magnetism fanatic, he dove into his research with nothing but curiosity. He discovered that he was fascinated by these seemingly complex theories. Picture him standing in a lab, eyes gleaming with curiosity, as if everything was waiting for him to unlock. Henry wasn't like today's college students, able to easily go to the library or use advanced lab equipment. At that time, the conditions for scientific experiments were incredibly basic. Henry didn't have ready-made tools or equipment, he had to rely on his limited resources. You might be wondering, how did Henry keep experimenting with such limited resources? That's what made Henry different from the others. He didn't complain about the lack of resources, nor did he give up. Instead, he made remarkable experiments with the limited tools he had. Henry began testing his hypotheses through experiments. Imagine how, in an era without advanced equipment, he fought on with nothing but curiosity. Henry's experiments weren't easy. You might think he encountered countless failures. But he didn't give up. Even without support, he kept pushing forward with his experiments. Many doubted the connection between electricity and magnetism, thinking they were unrelated. But Henry didn't give up easily. His belief was simple: there had to be some connection between electricity and magnetism. He kept experimenting and finally found the answer. In 1829, he discovered the close relationship between electric current and magnetic fields and how changes in the magnetic field could cause effects. This discovery, while simple, was incredibly significant. It laid the foundation for the invention of electric motors, generators, and provided theoretical support for the telegraph. Although Henry's name wasn't well known at the time, this discovery had a massive impact on future scientific development. Today, generators, electric motors, and even modern electrical systems owe much to his theories. Interestingly, Henry didn't advertise his discovery like today's scientists do. When he discovered electromagnetic induction, he didn't immediately rush to claim fame. Henry was humble. Some even thought his discovery wasn't that important at the time. But in reality, his discovery had an immeasurable impact on the world. Look at it now: generators, electric motors, and modern electrical systems, all are built on his theories. Henry's discovery changed the entire history of electricity and communication. Princeton didn't offer much help in Henry's academic journey. Most of the time, Henry was quietly making breakthroughs in his solitary experiments. Unlike today's scientists, he didn't have a strong support team or financial backing. All of his achievements were due to his own effort. Despite this, Henry ultimately achieved breakthroughs in academia. His discoveries were eventually recognized, and electromagnetism reached new heights. Henry proved the deep connection between electricity and magnetism through his persistence. While he wasn't initially valued, he found his place through hard work and dedication. From an ordinary student to a pioneer in electromagnetism, Henry's journey was not just about discovering electromagnetism, but also about his unwavering belief in himself. Thanks to Henry's efforts, the world of electricity and magnetism became clearer. Although he wasn't initially seen as a big deal, in the end, he made history with his work. By 1831, Henry did something that seemed a bit crazy at the time. He decided to measure the relationship between magnetic fields and electric current in his lab. This wasn't a simple experiment like let's see if we can restart the microwave. This was about uncovering the secrets of electricity and magnetism. Sounds like science fiction, right? But behind it was Henry's courage and curiosity. Have you ever heard the story about two geniuses discovering the same thing at the same time? It's like two chefs, each using their own recipe, but making the same dish, then they start arguing about who's the original creator. Well, that's the story of Henry and Faraday, two scientific giants from two different countries, discovering electromagnetic induction nearly at the same time. In 1831, Henry was in the United States, while Faraday was in the UK. At almost the exact same moment, both geniuses uncovered the secrets between electricity and magnetism. Henry, through his experiments, found that there was a deep relationship between electric current and magnetic fields. And Faraday? He made a similar discovery around the same time. One was on this side of the Atlantic, the other on that side, but they both came up with nearly identical theories. It's like the two of them were copying each other's recipes. But were their contributions really the same? Henry's work was more focused on theoretical development. He proved the relationship between electricity and magnetism. He didn't do a ton of experiments, but his theories laid the groundwork for later inventions like generators and motors. Faraday, on the other hand, was a hands-on experimentalist. He not only theorized but also demonstrated the universality of electromagnetic induction through a series of experiments. Faraday's contributions were more practical. His experiments directly applied to the development of technologies like generators and wireless communication. But did you know? Henry wasn't as flashy as Faraday. Henry's research was quiet, almost unnoticed. He didn't advertise his discoveries the way Faraday did. Instead, Faraday, with his successful experiments, started to get the world's attention. Faraday's name quickly became famous as electromagnetism spread. Henry, despite making his discovery first, never gained the recognition he deserved. Henry's contributions were groundbreaking. He made indispensable contributions to modern electrical engineering. But why didn't he become the scientific superstar that Faraday was? Sometimes, history's fame game just isn't fair. Henry's work, although earlier, is often overlooked. It's like an ongoing debate of who got there first. Even though Henry discovered electromagnetic induction before Faraday, Faraday ended up with all the fame. Isn't this the early bird gets the worm problem in the scientific world? Henry's discovery came before Faraday's, but it got forgotten. You see, Henry might always be the unsung hero of science. He paved the way for electromagnetism but never took the spotlight. Meanwhile, Faraday, through his experiments and public demonstrations, became the face of the field. Two geniuses, equally important, but with very different stage times. But no matter what, the impact of the discovery of electromagnetic induction on the world is immeasurable. Henry's work laid the theoretical foundation for modern devices like generators and motors. Faraday, meanwhile, made those theories actionable and drove the development of electricity and communication. In a way, their work was like a relay race. Henry set the starting line, and Faraday took off with a stunning performance. In the end, both of them made indispensable contributions to the modern technological revolution. Now, you might be asking, who's the true discoverer of electromagnetic induction? Honestly, that question isn't as important as it seems. History tends to favor the names that spread far and wide. Henry's name might not ring as loudly as Faraday's, but his contribution can't be ignored. Although he didn't get the global recognition Faraday did, Henry's work is forever etched in the foundation of electrical engineering. Henry didn't chase fame, but he changed the world. That's the beauty of science. If you think the telegraph was invented by just one genius, you're mistaken. Samuel Morse, of course, is the most famous name. He invented the telegraph and revolutionized global communication. But do you know? Behind him was a crucial supporter, Joseph Henry. Everyone knows Morse's telegraph. But behind the scenes, Henry's technical support was nothing short of magical. Can you imagine? Morse hit some technical roadblocks, almost stuck in a rut. That's when he called up Henry. "Hey Henry, can you help me out?" Without hesitation, Henry gave him a solution. What Morse needed was a way to stabilize the signal transmission. And Henry's solution? The relay. The relay is, in simple terms, a device that boosts the signal. Henry's little invention made the telegraph transmit further and more reliably. When Morse heard about it, he couldn't wait to add this miracle to the telegraph system. As a result, the telegraph's reliability skyrocketed, and its reach stretched farther than ever before. Just like that, Henry's technical support paved the way for Morse's success. Imagine if Henry's relay had never come to the rescue. The spread of the telegraph might have been delayed by years. But Henry's contribution never got the widespread attention like Morse's. Henry was the behind-the-scenes hero. Although Morse's name is famous, in their collaboration, Henry was the low-key genius. Now, when we hear the word telegraph, we immediately think of Morse. But, in reality, it was Henry's technical support that turned the telegraph into a reality. Morse and Henry's partnership seems like a battle of wits and skill. Whenever Morse ran into a problem, Henry would swiftly come up with a solution. Morse must have been thinking, without Henry, my telegraph would have been a work in progress. It's like that unsung hero in today's tech companies, the one who solves all the issues behind the scenes. You can't find them on stage, but without them, your project would have collapsed long ago. So, how did Henry's relay work? When electric current passes through a wire, the relay automatically switches a little switch, boosting the signal strength. This made Morse's telegraph signals more stable and allowed them to travel farther. You could think of the relay as the telegraph's amplifier. Henry's invention solved a huge issue for Morse, and suddenly, the telegraph could travel much greater distances. The problem was, Morse couldn't fix it himself. He was using electric current to transmit signals, but as the signal traveled, it would weaken. This made the telegraph less practical. That's when Henry stepped in, using his relay technology to solve the problem. It's like Henry installed an amplifier on the telegraph, making the signals travel far and stay strong. Morse soon realized that Henry's tech wasn't just a nice-to-have, it was a lifesaver. But guess what? Henry never made a big deal out of his support. His name still doesn't ring out like Morse's. Henry didn't go chasing the spotlight. He was more concerned with whether his tech could change the world. But without Henry, Morse's telegraph might never have been as successful. You could say Henry's invention gave the telegraph the boost it needed. Once the telegraph succeeded, the whole world's communication methods were forever changed. Henry made a quiet but crucial contribution. His technical support silently reshaped the global communication landscape. If Morse was the father of the telegraph, Henry was undoubtedly its mentor. So next time you talk about the telegraph, remember to leave a spot for Henry too. Have you ever wondered who's behind the electric tools you use today, the appliances in your home, or even the global power systems that keep everything running? It's true that back in the day, electric motors weren't exactly the trend, but Henry was already planting the seeds for the future. Imagine it, 1832. Electricity was just beginning to spark, but the world was still firmly in the age of steam power. Everyone thought steam was the driving force of the Industrial Revolution. But Henry, he saw something else. He saw the potential of electricity. Electricity? Back then, it sounded like something straight out of a sci-fi novel. Yet, Henry was already venturing down the path of electrification. By 1832, he was deep into studying the principles behind generators. Can you believe it? The generators of that time weren't exactly pretty, and their working principles were complicated, nowhere near as advanced as today's generators. But Henry saw the enormous potential electricity had to power the future industrial revolution. So, he began his experiments. Through his research, Henry discovered that the interaction between electric current and magnetic fields could create a continuous flow of electricity. This is the basic principle behind modern generators. Picture this: Henry, in a time with little more than simple magnets and wires, could already see the budding future of electrification. He understood that electricity would bring about a revolutionary change. Henry didn't stop at theory. He started building experimental setups, gradually refining his ideas about generators. Although there weren't precision instruments like we have today, Henry used intuition and ingenuity to slowly unlock the mysteries of electricity. He managed to create a rotating magnetic field that could produce a steady flow of current. This laid the foundation for the invention of electric motors and large-scale generators. But back then, electric motors weren't commonplace. Henry's research mostly focused on understanding the interaction between electric currents and magnetic fields, how current could flow continuously through conductors. This wasn't something you could immediately take to market, but Henry already knew steam was on its way out, and electricity was the real deal for the future. At that time, almost all large machinery was steam-powered. To most people, electricity was still a pretty abstract concept. But Henry, he was paving the way for electrification. He knew that generators could not only transform the way we produce power but could also change the global energy landscape. And this, of course, wasn't a technology that could be adopted overnight. However, Henry's work provided valuable theoretical support for future generator manufacturers. Over the decades, as technology progressed, his theories gradually became practical. Eventually, generator technology was widely applied, driving the development of global electrical systems. But in the early days, Henry's contribution to generators didn't get the recognition it deserved. After all, the widespread use of generators depended on more advanced technology and more powerful equipment. Still, Henry's discovery laid the groundwork for future breakthroughs in generator technology, opening up countless possibilities. Now, you might be thinking, if Henry could see the world today, what would he think? He'd probably be shocked. From power tools to the global power grid, today's world is completely different from what he could have imagined back then. Henry had an unprecedented vision. Although he didn't live to see the full explosion of electrification, his work undeniably provided the theoretical foundation for everything that came after. Electric motors, generators, and nearly all devices that rely on electricity trace back to Henry's seemingly simple experiments. Think about it: if Henry hadn't made those discoveries, the pace of electrification might have been much slower. We might still be worrying about power shortages today, rather than enjoying the convenience of electricity at our fingertips. So, even though Henry wasn't as famous as Edison, his contributions are irreplaceable. He paved the way for the development of power systems and kick-started the electrification of modern industry. From the principles of the first generators to today's global power grids, Henry's influence is everywhere. We've become so used to living with electricity that it's easy to forget the unsung pioneer behind it all, Joseph Henry. Henry wasn't just a physicist, he was practically the grandfather of electrical engineering. His discoveries were like seeds planted in the lab, quietly growing and eventually blooming across entire industries. Electricity, telegraphs, even the electronic product revolution, they all owe a piece of their legacy to him. Did you know? By the mid-19th century, Henry's research laid the foundation for modern electrical engineering. But back then, he didn't get much applause from the academic world. This father of electrical engineering was often overlooked. Sometimes, scientists are like gardeners, quietly planting seeds in the corner, while history gives the flowers to someone else. Henry's contributions were deep, but during his lifetime, people were more focused on the flashier inventions like the telegraph. Henry's theories and techniques laid the groundwork for the success of the telegraph system, but all the attention was on Morse's name. Morse invented the telegraph, but Henry's relay technology made sure the telegraph system could run smoothly over time. In the whole story, Henry became the behind-the-scenes hero. Electrical engineering? He started that a long time ago. When it came to research on electric motors and generators, Henry's contributions were impossible to ignore. At that time, electrical technology was just getting off the ground, but Henry's experiments made it possible. He didn't make a fortune off patents like Edison, nor did he become a public tech icon like Tesla. But Henry's contributions have had a far-reaching impact, surpassing the work of many famous inventors. Imagine the founding father of electrical engineering didn't even get the recognition he deserved. Henry's research provided the theoretical support for the construction of power systems. At that time, electricity was still a new field. Even though Henry had figured out complex electromagnetic principles, society didn't quite grasp how they could be applied to the real world. What he did was carve a path on the edge of the electrical and electronic world. But Henry, at that time, didn't stand in the spotlight. The academic world was more focused on those world-changing inventions. Henry's work was more theoretical, and people might have thought it was a bit abstract. Yet, it was precisely these abstract theories that became the core of future power, electronics, and communication technologies. Though Henry didn't enjoy fame in his day, over time, his influence quietly accumulated. Today, the global power system, the internet, and even the electronic devices we use are all built on Henry's discoveries. These technologies, even though most people don't realize it, became possible because of Henry's early work. From power systems to electronic products, Henry's research is deeply embedded in them all. So, the next time you use power tools or charge your phone, remember to thank Henry. This founding father of electrical engineering may never be as famous as Edison, but his impact is truly everywhere. Henry's contributions gave us the world of electricity we live in today. His experimental results, back in the mid-19th century, laid the foundation for the rapid development of modern electrical engineering. Ironically, his name never occupied a prominent place in history. He may not have become a tech mogul like Steve Jobs, but his discoveries fundamentally changed the way the world works. The rise of electricity, communication, and electronics, Henry's name is part of it all. Although the academic world didn't give him the attention he deserved back then, his work has deeply influenced our world today. So, the next time you turn on a light, use a power tool, or operate an appliance, remember Henry's early research is quietly present around you. He's the founding father of electrical engineering, the invisible hero. Today, electricity and electrical engineering are everywhere, but Henry's name is often overlooked. Yet, his contributions are deeply rooted in our everyday lives. Henry's story is not just a victory of science, but a portrayal of the forgotten heroes of his time. Even though Henry never won a Nobel Prize, though he was fully deserving, his research greatly advanced technological progress. In his later years, though still low-key, the world of electrification became much brighter thanks to him. You've probably heard of many great scientists, but what about Henry? He wasn't as famous as Edison, nor did he have the spotlight like Tesla. Henry was more like that invisible hero. He changed the world, but he never sought the spotlight. Henry's later years were relatively quiet. Though he received many honors, most of them came later. During his lifetime, the academic world didn't shine the spotlight on him much. He was the scientist who quietly changed the world. Like a backstage player, Henry's contributions to the world were silently influencing us. Even so, his inventions and theories drove the rapid development of electrical engineering. From electric motors to power systems, Henry's contributions laid the groundwork for one scientific milestone after another. But he didn't become a household name like today's tech giants. Did you know? Even in his later years, despite his success, he still didn't get the public recognition he deserved. He didn't become a household name like Einstein, nor did he sit on piles of wealth like Edison. Henry's contributions were quiet. He was the behind-the-scenes hero, always making key changes at just the right moment. Henry's later years weren't glorious, and in fact, his life was full of regrets. Some of his colleagues, like Faraday and Edison, seemed to get more fame and wealth. Meanwhile, Henry stayed low-key. But guess what? Today's electric world is almost entirely influenced by Henry's contributions. From the invention of electric motors to the construction of power systems, Henry's theories and inventions are the people who changed the world. Usually just think one step deeper. If this story made you see things differently, hit like, subscribe, and save it. See you in the next story.